Warning, this podcast contains spoilers for Breath of the Wild. Light, not major at all. Very, very minor spoilers for Tears of the Kingdom. And spoilers for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Hello, my name is Jason Concepcion. Welcome to X-Ray Vision, the Crooked Media Podcast, where we dive deep into your favorite shows, movies, comics, and pop culture. Throughout this particular recording, this episode, which is gracing your ears right now, you may notice the absence of one magnificent human being named Rosie Knight. Unfortunately, she had some internet issues. Her Wi-Fi was not being amenable to us recording a podcast. So she is only able to join us partially throughout the run of this episode and for our interview with the very talented Sean Gunn. In this episode, in the Airlock, Cody Ziglar joins us to discuss video games in general, the newly released masterpiece Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and more. Then Zig and I discuss the WGA Writers Strike, issues surrounding that, our experiences on the picket line. In the Hive Mind, Sean Gunn, a.k.a. Kraglin, joins us to discuss Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and the series in general. Coming up next, the Airlock. We're stepping out of the Airlock into Hyrule to discuss Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and its incredible sequel, Tears of the Kingdom, along with lots of other video games that we're playing right now. Before our discussion of the magnificent Legend of Zelda, the Tears of the Kingdom, let's recap Breath of the Wild. Joining me now is our good friend, Cody Ziglar. Cody, how are you?
I am fantastic. Always love to dive back into the world of Hyrule for one last ride. Sometimes it's on a horse. Sometimes it's on a mechanized, ancient Zeonic suit. But anytime to dive back in, I'm happy to be there.
Rosie is currently sealed away in some sort of Wi-Fi malfunction. We hope to get her back soon. But if you're not hearing a voice, it's because we're experiencing technical difficulties. And speaking of technical difficulties, speaking of the complexities of technology, one of the important retcons, additions to the lore of the Legend of Zelda series, introduced by the Breath of the Wild video game, 2017's Game of the Year, the best-selling installment in the Legend of Zelda series, was the technology of Hyrule. We learn over the course of Breath of the Wild that 10,000 years ago, thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, and Rosie, you can, I've just started the Breath of the Wild recap.
Oh, just in time.
And just in time. So here we go. So 10,000 years ago, Hylian researchers had developed incredibly advanced technologies to defend Hyrule from the evil forces of Ganon, the main antagonist of the Legend of Zelda series. And these technological defenses and various advancements took many forms. Mainly, they came in the form of the Guardians, which is kind of like tentacled robot sentries that fired laser beams, and the divine beasts, these like huge, massive kaiju-like machines that would each defend from Ganon, and are each piloted by a specially chosen pilot who are known together as the champions. And these champions were selected from 4 of the kingdom's peoples: the Zora, the aquatic Zora, the Gorons, who are like made of rocks and dwell in volcanoes and dwell on the mountainsides, the desert-dwelling Gerudo people, and the Revali, who are like parrots. These wonderful avian folks. So guess what? The technology worked. Ganon emerges. The Guardians and the Divine Beasts all swing into action with Princess Zelda and Link, and the foe is defeated. Zelda uses her power, which is, contained within her, to seal away the darkness, meaning Ganon, and the threat is ended. Fast forward 9,900 years later, a century before the events of Breath of the Wild, and there's these burbling signs that Ganon is going to return, right? Monsters returning, they're getting stronger and stronger. But also in that time, Princess Zelda and Hyrule in general has like forgotten all of their past technological advancements. And so Zelda is like, she is locked in this conflict. She's trying to reawaken the power to banish darkness, but she can't get it to rekindle. So, as kind of like a way to deal with this, she like throws herself into the research of the Hyrule's ancient technologies, the Guardians, the Divine Beasts, and all that. And her dad, King Rome, understanding that Ganon's going to return, excavates the Divine Beasts, which I guess had fallen into complete disrepair, and starts like looking around for champions that can then fly and pilot the Divine Beasts, and he finds them. Meanwhile, Zelda's like growing increasingly insecure over the fact that she can't get her power to emerge. The Link that we meet in this version of the story is just like a simple soldier. He just like works his way up through the armed forces of Hyrule and then becomes like the chosen knight of Princess Zelda. But she also feels like weirdly jealous of him because like he's such a great fighter and good at fighting monsters, and she can't get her power to banish the darkness, to seal the darkness away, to like rekindle. And her dad is like, hey, maybe you could get your powers to rekindle if you'd stop like playing with your cell phone. She's like always playing on her Sheikah slate, which is like
on her iPad.
Yeah, on her iPad.
Hyrule iPad.
Which is called a Sheikah slate, and it does all the things that a smartphone could do. And Zelda's very, very taken with it, and she's also taken with like studying the Guardians. Zelda tries, many times to reawaken her powers, and then finally she's like, okay, I'm going to go to the Spring of Wisdom, and hopefully there I can rekindle my powers. So she goes there with Link, and the champions are watching, and unfortunately, as she tries and fails to reawaken her powers at the Spring of Wisdom, there's a fucking huge earthquake, and guess what? Ganon's back.
Dun dun dun.
Hate to see it.
He's always comes back. And this time he's like we're calling him Calamity Ganon in Breath of the Wild because he is like this tragic, disastrous force of nature, a calamity that befalls everyone in this kingdom. And Ganon has spent the intervening 9,000 plus years just doing Oppo research. He's like ready for his ops.
He is plotting on him.
Scheming.
Yeah.
He is ready. He doesn't just come in to get mollywopped by the Guardians and the Divine Beasts and the champions and Link and Princess Zelda. No, he hacks the technology using like his malign force, which is embodied by this like red cloud of like terrible looking smoke. And with this, he hacks the Guardians, takes control of them. He hacks into the Divine Beasts, kills the champions, and just starts laying waste to Hyrule. It's a fucking disaster. The champions are gone. Link is now like the only thing standing between Ganon and complete victory. He and Zelda flee the castle, which has been taken over by the rampaging Guardians, now under the control of Ganon. And Link is fighting them off. He's the last guy standing. It's an incredible display, but finally there's just like way too many of these tentacled Guardians. And as they're about to take him down, Zelda reaches out and suddenly her power awakens, and all the Guardians in the area just like fall lifeless as this flash of light emanates from her. But unfortunately, Link is fucked up. Link is real fucked up, folks. He is grievously wounded on the edge of death. And so the princess says, hey, take Link to the Shrine of Resurrection where he can heal. Take his weapon, the legendary Master Sword, which you don't really find out in this retelling how Link, who is just a normal soldier, comes into possession of the legendary Master Sword. But she says, take the Master Sword and we'll hide it in the Korok Forest. And I, now having regained my powers to hold Ganon at bay, will fight Ganon and keep him contained in Hyrule Castle while Link heals. And that takes 100 fucking years.
Yeah, this is no Lazarus Pit. This is not. You go in the Lazarus Pit for like 2 days and you're chilling, and they're like, "This is 100 years of resurrection.
Yeah.
This man should not have been alive. It took him 100
Hyrulean
years."
insurance is not as good as maybe other types of insurance, so it took a while to run his tests and get his labs done. But
the bureaucracy is keeping Link in the pit.
So for a century, Princess Zelda is fighting a continuous battle in the bowels of Hyrule Castle against Ganon. It's an incredible feat of sheer power. And at the end of this 100 years, Link awakens. He hears a voice telling him, "Link, we need, we need you, all this stuff." He finds Princess Zelda's cell phone. It's there for him next to his little Bacta tank. And the player starts the game, and over the course of the game, you travel to the 4 various regions of Hyrule where the divine beasts are kept, and one by one, you free them from the clutches of Ganon. And as you free them from the clutches of Ganon, you make an alliance with the respective champion the ghost of the champion that piloted that beast. And those champions, one after another, bestow Link with a special ability. So from Mipha of the Zora, Link acquires Grace, which is this power of resurrection. You die once, and you're able to immediately resurrect full health. You can't do it for another 24 minutes, but it's super, super, super OP. From Daruk of the Goron, the Rocky Goron, you get protection, which is like this a shield power. From Rivali of the Rito, the bird-like Rivali people, the bird-like Rito people, you get Gale, which is like this tornado updraft of wind that carries Link up into the sky, and then you can like fly around. And from Urbosa of the Gerudo, Link gets Fury, which is like this lightning power that shocks his foes. So one by one, Link cleanses Ganon's influence from the divine beasts. The divine beasts, now piloted by the ghosts of the champions, fire these like massive laser beams at Hyrule Castle. Those knock Ganon for a loop. This allows Zelda to, stop having to, get a rest for the first time in 100 years. She gets to like take a break, and Link then travels to Hyrule Castle. Some of the best music in the entire game as you travel through the depths of Hyrule Castle, right? You go down into the bowels of the castle, and there you face Ganon in his 2 monstrous forms. So there's the first level and the second level, and each time you're using these arrows of light to fire at Ganon, and then interchanging that with a hopefully perfectly timed block of Ganon's laser beam. And if all goes right, you have defeated Ganon, and you are now free to collect Korok seeds or do whatever the hell else you want to do. Cooking over the width and breadth of beautiful Hyrule. That, folks, is the story of Breath of the Wild that leads us to Tears of the Kingdom. Rosie Zig, your thoughts on Breath of the Wild and playing it for the first time?
So I came in about 1.5 years late into Breath of the Wild, so the discourse was already gone. So like I came in pretty fresh. But I always tell this story of like my experience with Breath of the Wild. So everything Jason told you is the truth, and the thing is that you can go straight to fighting Ganon like literally as soon as they open the credits, or you can go around and like rescue these divine beasts. You can spend as little or as much time as you want on this game. So I had spent 20 hours on this game. And I was like, oh, I've gotten a couple of defined beasts. I've got some powers. Like I have a pretty good staple of hearts and Korok seeds. So I feel like I've seen everything I haven't seen in the game. And then I'm just walking around the plateaus at the very beginning area, and I hear this most intense orchestral violin music. And I look up and I see a full-ass dragon descending from the clouds. I remember saying out loud to myself, putting my controller down, I was like, they have dragons? I remember just like being shocked that this game had dragons. And the thing is, that happened 2 more times. Like I didn't know there was more than one dragon in the entire game. So like I spent all this time, and you find all these nuances and all these things you didn't know was happening in the game. But also they have, as Jason sort of mentioned, a big sort of theme of this game is like nature returning or taking over, because it's been like this sort of apocalyptic scenario. And there's some lot of, references and inspiration from a bunch of Japanese work, but particularly like Miyazaki. And one of like my absolute favorite moments or set pieces of this game is like there's a specific mountain in this game, and every there's like a day and night cycle, and maybe like once a week in game you'll just see a crazy blue light from this emanating from this mountain, and if you get there before the light goes down, you can come across this like old forest spirit being worshipped by like little rabbit dudes, and like you can hop on it and take it becomes your mount and steed, and like it's things that you would never know unless you just like walk around the continent of Hyrule and discover the game. And like I love that so much about it. Like it's a game where I have probably put at this point 70 hours in it, but I still have so many large patches of gray on my map and my overworld that I can only imagine how much time I'm going to spend on Tears of the Kingdom, which is the from what I've seen, the original map plus a whole sky world. And also I guess Link got a engineering degree in his time off in between games, because now he could just build anything that he wants to.
Yeah, one of my favorite things like that from Breath of the Wild was the monster masks, which you get from this merchant called Kilton, who only appears at certain times at this certain lake. It's stuff like that just rewards exploration. I remember I first started playing Breath of the Wild right around the time when the Princess Sidon of the Zora is like fuckable discourse was happening. I don't know if people remember this. This is 2017 now. But there was a period of time on the internet where everybody wanted to fuck this fish prince. I don't know. People remember this?
This game walked so Shape of Water could run.
Yeah, absolutely. And anyway, that was when I came into the game, and I have not, I think Elden Ring is the only other game that made me feel like I just want to walk around. Even Red Dead 2, which is a fantastic like exploration game, didn't have the sense of like mystery and the rewarding nature of gameplay. There's something about, I think part of it is the fact that Dark Souls games and Breath of the Wild, Zelda games in general, there's not a lot of like, the tutorials are always very, very long, but there's not a lot of like explanation about like what you should be doing or how the puzzles work or how you can solve the puzzles. Like, and so there's a lot of trial and error, and there's this Amazing like feeling of, oh my God, I figured it out that can happen.
Yes.
Just by like trying stuff. And there's also this kind of sense of community that rises up in these games because of the fact that you end up Googling and watching YouTube videos by various creators about like how to find this stuff. If you haven't played Breath of the Wild, the Switch is certainly nearing the end of its life, but it is a console well worth having, and you could probably find it pretty cheap. Certainly at a discount right about now. Certainly if you went for a used Switch Lite or something like that. Breath of the Wild it is a landmark achievement, and it is well worth playing, and it is the direct antecedent to Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. A lot of the themes, like the themes of like technology and the double-edged nature of technology, you can use it for defense, but also can be used against you, are there. And increasingly, Zig, I think that the titular tears are the tears of the people of Hyrule as Link, now a madman at the controls of vast and powerful machinery, wages what can like industrial level warfare on the monsters of Hyrule.
It really is. I am become death. That's Jason and I were picketing the other morning, and we were just swapping TikToks of like people really just. It's like really like, Link went to engineering school to do good, and then he decided to work for Lockheed Martin. Like there are people making bomber jets. There are people making tanks with like actual 4-way suspension. We saw multiple mech suits. Like it's crazy how
fully operational mech suits.
Like it's just wild. This double-edged sword of technology. Like there was one video which I think we may have watched where he built like a a flying jet that had multiple laser missiles and like heat guided rockets. It's insane being like, this is like Leak is a god now. Like you could fully like decimate these poor hog monsters running around the ground. Like it's been pretty fun to watch. But like as you were sort of mentioning earlier, like I always come back to this. Like I think the gameplay loop for Breath of the Wild, and certainly it seems to be Tears of the Kingdom now, is like, you know that meme of like the little monkey that says neuron activated? Like it's truly like that is what this is. Like you can feel and watch in real time new brain connections being made. I had a friend over the other day and we were playing, and we were, like you said, we were still in the tutorial area because the tutorial level are notoriously long for these games, but you were given this ability to like combine things, and all you have is like context clues. So like we had a broken rail, we had a mine cart, we had a giant metal hook, and we had like a turbine, and we put all these things together and smashed them, and we just created like a ski lift essentially, and it got us to where we needed to go. But like I'm sure there were like 13 different ways to solve that problem, but because we were there and we were like sort of working together, we realized that we could just like make this thing. And like this is like the first hour in the game. Like I can only fathom when it gets to the point where like you get, like you said, suspension, and you get like laser. I saw someone build a 3-stage rocket.
Yes.
Yes.
Like a fully operational 3-stage rocket where you trigger the stages by shooting arrows at them. And this person flew like thousands of feet up to the top of Hyrule.
I mean, truly, the first thing I did when I got to the actual touch ground on Hyrule is like they just dump you next to a box of like building materials, and I just fully built a car. Like I built a little truck. I got a roof on it. I stuck 2 turbines, and I just like was cruising around Hyrule. It was great. And I went to art school. I don't know shit about engineering. Like it was great.
I'm able to build like only the most simple machines right now, turbine powered, but I've only got the one battery, so my machinery lasts maybe 15 seconds, like on full blast. But I've got the glider also, which is a machine that Link can unlock. And I can't tell you how many gliders I have lost off the side of a fucking mountain by trying to launch a glider. Let me try and explain how the mechanics work. You can attach various things to other things. So Link has access to machinery right now at this early stage of the game, and I don't know where you are, Zig, but I'm heading towards Rito City, Rito Village, and I have a flame shooter machine. I have the glider. I have a little cooking pot that can cook whatever I need to in. And I have the turbines. And then everywhere around the world are building materials that you can build, like carts or, like boats, and little things with.
Death machines.
And also any weapon that you come across, you can use one of your new powers called Fuse to combine the weapon with like the horn of Bokoblin, right? That you can then use like to make it stronger, or like the teeth of some boss enemy. You can like fuse a sword with that, and all of a sudden, like you've got a much more powerful weapon. I'm putting like rocks.
Make literal homing missiles. You can put like an eyeball on an arrow and make it into a homing missile. It's insane. What you can do. Oh yes, those little bat guys that drop the eyeballs and wings when you kill them. If you kill one and you take an eyeball and you fuse it to an arrow, it creates a heat-seeking arrow that'll automatically target creatures. It's yes. This is.
Oh my god. Wow.
Yeah, try it out. It's a blast.
My big brain thing has been like, what if I put a rock on my shield? If I put a big rock on the surface of my shield, which has worked out well for me. Included in this game are 5 new powers. So this Ultra Hand, which allows you basically to like manipulate objects at a distance. So let's say you want to build, as you will if you play this game, like a 1/4-mile long bridge out of logs. You cut down the trees and then use Ultra Hand to kind of like move the logs around. There is Fuse, which we just explained. Ascend, which allows Link to move through solid matter, like jump up. If you're in a cave, you can jump up into the rock, go through the rock and come out the other side. And you could do this with wood. You could do this with platforms. You could do it with anything essentially that's over Link's head. Recall, which allows Link to rewind time, so my friend Heidi told me this, Zig. You know those rocks that are falling everywhere in Hyrule?
Yeah.
If you see one just fall and you go to it, you can use recall to ride it all the way back up into the sky.
Oh, you know what? That makes sense, but also it makes no sense because they give you no context for this. Like,
yeah,
you know,
you just have to figure that shit out. And auto build, which is now you don't have to assemble stuff. Like you can build machines and then save the blueprint and then like take it out of your little magic bag and all the stuff pops into existence.
Oh, I can't wait.
That I have not unlocked yet.
Yeah.
So where are you in this game?
So I literally just landed in. I literally just set foot in Hyrule because you spend the first maybe hour or 2 hours, depending on how slow you are, the game basically doing the tutorial, which is like in this sort of new sky region of the game. So I literally touched down like last night, and I came across I'm assuming the first village you're supposed to come across. I don't know because they just dump you in the middle of the continent. But yeah, you know, I made my little Studebaker and drove over there, and like I talked to Pura, I believe, who created like your I think they may have updated the Sheikah Slate to the Pura pad, I think is what they call it now.
Yeah.
But I met them, and I think I was given my first quest, but then I immediately just ran around and started shooting the goblin guy. So I think the first point of order is getting your horse. I heard that you can get your horses back that you have from the first game. So I had the big thick boy from the first game with like the max that like didn't run out of stamina. So I want to get that guy and build a cart for him, and then just like wreak havoc across Hyrule.
One of the things that people have been doing in this game is torturing Koroks. So Koroks are these leaf-like creatures who in Breath of the Wild you would find them in various places, but often under rocks or on the top of mountains or the top of like large pillars, and they would lead you to these little side quests. These Koroks, the side quests are that a Korok has been separated from his friend who's like across a chasm or on the other side of a river or on the top of a mountain somewhere. And again, no context was given, but Link is tasked with, if he so chooses, to reunite this Korok with their friend. And you could do this by, like, say, building a wagon and using Ultra Hand to put the Korok in the wagon and then driving him over there. But people are being so fucking diabolical to these Koroks, Zig. I've seen them being waterboarded by like machines. I'm not kidding.
I've seen two very, very funny ones. One where someone built a catapult and had stuck a bunch of Koroks on there and launched them across the countryside. And the other is someone had built a truck and a crucifix and stuck one to the crucifix. It was just driving around Hyrule.
Oh, I saw one where they attached a Korok to a fucking rocket sled and just like shot it out into the distance. Someone created a engine gear that rotates a spit on which they had attached 4 Koroks roasting over fire. It's like, what the,
this game is insane.
It's so nuts.
Also,
And,
this
like,
is only
I don't-
like day 4 of the game being out.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how the fuck? At the time of this recording, this game has not been out a week. This game came out last Friday. You're going to be listening to it potentially on the 1 week anniversary of the release of this game. And yet by Monday, people had built fully fledged complex machinery with which to torture these poor fucking Koroks in ways that I can't even count the number of Korok crucifixions that I have now seen.
Yeah, that's a popular one. I saw one. There's early on in the game when you first land. There's like this like gloom pit, like an inlet bottomless pit, and I saw someone had built a plank and stuck a Korok at the top of a tower, and then they were firing fire arrows to burn the planks and send the Korok to the bottomless pit. It Oh man, some of the I mean truly like when I say gameplay game of the year, like I'm not being facetious. Like this is exactly what video games should be, like capital V video games. Like this is so fun and so
100%.
stupid.
And when we say like full Gundam suits,
Yes.
legit, like people are building like 40-foot robots
Yeah.
that Link controls with like a big lever, one huge lever.
Yeah.
And these robots walk on two legs, number one, and two, fire auto lasers like out of its eyes and hands, and just like these bokoblins everywhere. These poor guys are just like running for their lives. It is incredible what people are doing. I saw you mentioned it, like a Jeep with independent suspension and four-wheel drive, like someone built.
Yeah, four-wheel drive, and again, I guess later on in the game there's like a piece of technology that lets you actually steer the thing, but like they were fully just driving it around like an actual car, taking the lever this way and that way. I think we may mention at the top of the show, but someone built a fully functioning flying mech, and they were like hunting, I guess, bird enemies that appear later in the game and like attacking the flying dragons in the sky. It was crazy.
Rosie, where are you in Tears of the Kingdom?
Surprising absolutely no one. I am relatively early in Tears of the Kingdom because I have been walking around building things and cooking and cooking.
What is your number one, your favorite recipe at this point? And what is the best thing you've built?
Okay, so the best thing and most frustrating thing that I built early on in the game, when you have to build a lot of like contraptions to slide down things, I was helping a Korok find his friend, because this is like the Link version of Animal Crossing where you always have to run an errand for somebody. So I was using my powers, my Ultra Hand powers, but I slid him too far past his friend. So then I decided that the only thing to do was to build an extremely large ladder. And I built a ladder so big out of tree trunks that they actually wouldn't let me add any more tree trunks to it. And it was tall enough to go on the cliff. But when I was unshaking the little guy, I like demolished the whole thing, dropped him many times. I'm sure he was really regretting asking for my help. But that was definitely my most impressive build so far. I've also been trying to fashion like interesting boats. Mm-hmm. Because there's so many, there's so many sails, and I have not gotten close enough to getting an engine or anything yet, sadly. But yeah, I've been trying to see how long. The first time I came across a boat very early in the game, I was very excited. I added some wood to it, and I tried to use it as a bridge, and it fell horribly down like a giant cliff, and I was like screaming into the night. I was like, no!
I have done that so many times.
Another staple of these Breath of the Wild games is like the funny unintentional deaths. Like have you guys had your first funny, silly, kind of humiliating death with Link yet?
Oh, I've had so many. I swear I've been playing these. I played Breath of the Wild so much, and it did not stop me from just constantly dying. Like, especially when I first, I love the Sky Kingdom stuff, and like it's really cool, like the Sky Islands. But the first couple of times when I didn't realize you had to, like, sometimes you have to press to like properly dive. It will be like accelerate, and if you don't, it's like you just definitely died. Like it's going horribly wrong for you. Also, just jumping into nothing because you think a river is there.
I've done that.
Yeah. Mine was I found a body of water and I was building like a raft. So I had stuck like 3 or 4 tree trunks together, but I needed to get down to actually get to the water. So like I fell off a cliff, but I didn't know that if you fall from a certain height, you just stop levitating the stuff. So like I fell down, took off like half a heart, and then I was smushed myself with the raft that I was making, and then they played that like this and that embarrassing death music.
That's really similar to the food music for some reason. It's like the cooking is really good. Very early on, you can cook pretty good stuff if you reach the guardian who tells you how to cook it. Like they have one called a pepper steak, and it looks so good. It's like a sky shroom, a fire plant, a piece of meat, and an acorn. And when you look at that image, you want to eat it. Like, they got even better with the illustrations. So yeah, I got very quickly distracted after having to remember how you cook, because I was like standing next to it and I was pressing my up button on the D-pad, like, okay, I'm looking at the food, and it was like drop, and I was like, oh, I've got to go to the inventory and do it that way. Like, it definitely took me a little while to get back into it, but It is like so much fun, and the Sky Islands is such a good way to make it immediately feel very different from Breath of the Wild.
My funniest death thus far, other than the various times that I've just run out of stamina jumping off of something, like with my I've got the paraglider now, and I'm early in the game, so I have a wheel and about an eighth of a wheel of stamina, and so I've died many times just like falling from great heights. Early in the game in the Sky Islands, there's these like floating metal platforms that are thick, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was using logs as bridges and moving them with Ultra Hand and then attaching them, right? So I get up onto one, and I didn't realize that they react to weight, so I climb onto it, and I use Ultra Hand again to grab another log that I had cut down that was still on solid ground, and I pull it over to this floating platform that I'm on, and I just kind of put it down, and the weight of it tips the entire platform so that I fall off, the log hits me, and I die.
I'm sure it's too early in the game, but what kind of fits are we working with? Like, what's your drip like looking for a link right now?
My drip it's rudimentary, but it's getting a little better. I've got the Hyrulean hood, which I got at the at Hyrule Castle. So I don't want to spoil it, but when you kind of first get into the main quest of the game, the interaction takes place in front of Hyrule Castle, where there's a whole research and development project going on about like what's the current state of Hyrule and how do we stop it. And there I was able to buy like a decent tunic and the hood, and up in the Sky Islands I had also managed to find like cold weather pants, which was super important because you're up there basically nude. And other than like the hot peppers, which you can make like warming foods out of, like I was just freezing. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean that's basically it. I'm rocking. After I got to Hyrule, I just I had let the boys out, so I took the shirt off, and now I'm just rocking the cold weather pants until I find something more suitable. But like in the Breath of the Wild, I always rocked either the dark Link fit or I think they give you like rock climbing gear, because I think that's honestly the most important part, is like being able to like climb fast. That to me was the only hint of like a bad note for that game was like it takes so long to actually climb in the game, unless you want to like waste all your stamina jumping up.
I always wore the Barbarian set, which was this kind of like...
Is that the one with the horns on
it?
With
the horns and stuff, and you're kind of shirtless, and you get the thighs out. It's kind of like a Conan the Barbarian look, but it gives you like boosts to attack and stamina. I would wear that, and honestly the dark set also, when I was just kind of running around. And then of course, like situationally, like if you're in a cold environment, I would wear something to protect against the cold, the rubber suit in case there were electrical storms going on, the Gerudo like veil and kind of gauzy outfit, just in case you're in that intense heat. But I'm really hoping, as with all my games, to really get my drip going right now, because it's very rudimentary at this point.
That's always like the end game for me, is like what kind of drip can I get off. I did a pre-order at Best Buy with a couple of friends, and they purchased some amiibos along with it. Now I've never been an amiibo user, but do you have one? And like, have you ever used one with like this one or Breath of the Wild?
I have not done it. I'm glad that you actually don't need the amiibo to get content for Tears of the Kingdom, but I've not been an amiibo person. How do you use it? That's the other thing, is I'm unclear on how the amiibo works.
My old man brain also has a very similar question, but I guess there's some type of like Bluetooth type device where like you just tap it to either, I guess, your Game Pro controller or the physical Switch, and then I guess you get items from that. But I again, old man Zig, I do not know. I have not actually physically used one before.
What else are you playing right now, Zig? I have a much too robust video game life, and I'm eager to share the various video games that I'm both waiting for and have been playing. But what are you playing? What were you playing before this?
Well, I have a staple game. It's a free to play gacha game. So like I got to get my hours in basically every day for that. That's called Gundam Battle Operation 2. I won't get into it because it's I just can't open that can of worms. But besides that, I was a huge Resident Evil 4 fan for the GameCube. And the remake just came out, and I have regressed to full 16-year-old just playing through games again. Like, I beat it once, then I beat it on hardcore difficulty, and before Tears of the Kingdom came out, I was speed running my way through professional mode. If you beat it in under 5.5 hours, you get like a special gun in the game and some special armor for one of the characters. So like, I was about 30 minutes into that. I think I had breezed my way somehow through like, I think there were like 16 levels in the game. I had already sped run my way to like level 4 or 5 in like 30 minutes. So like, I was on a clear path, I think, to take home the gold. But then Hyrule came calling back, so I had to run away. I was going to get Jedi Survivor, the sequel to that. I had to sort of flip a coin between this and Zelda, and like, I feel like Zelda's just going to I would not have time to play that game. Like, Zelda's going to take all my attention.
I have Jedi Survivor waiting impatiently for me to get done with my Tears of the Kingdom fix, which probably won't happen, at least for a few days. But I'm eager to play it. Let's see. I'm always playing Overwatch 2, just because it's a game I can play for like a couple minutes and get my the most toxic version of myself out. I'm
is that game still running? Did they shut down the server? Did they do something
No,
with that?
it's ongoing. Okay. In terms of like multiplayer games, like, because I've aged out of, like Call of Duty and that shit. I just don't have the Twitch like nervous system that way anymore. So I need to play like different characters who don't just like point and shoot. So Overwatch allows me to do different things, to play different kinds of characters with different kinds of abilities. It's basically like a multiplayer version of like the X-Men, this game. And I usually play healer, so I'm a bronze level 1, which is about as low as you can be in this game in competitive, but that's because I'm on PC. I've been playing, I was playing Dead Island 2 recently, which is the long-awaited sequel to, I think, 2011's Dead Island on the Xbox 360 console. Super fun game set in LA, which allows you to like craft different weapons and kill lots of zombies. If you like Borderlands, you'll like Dead Island. I'm playing a lot of building games, Zig. This is why Tears of the Kingdom has got its hooks into me. I love games where you can craft and build things. Mm-hmm. So Sons of the Forest, which I've mentioned before, is like you fight cannibals like on this deserted island, and you can build like a base, and you can build like catapults, and you can build different like fortifications, and I've been doing that big time. I've been playing Green Hell, which is a survive in the Amazon jungle game. It's a little too hardcore for me, but it's still pretty fun. It's like it's like Ark, where you start with like a stick and a rock, and like somehow from that you build like machinery and different and like a house out of mud. And
like, I had friends that are really into Ark, but it seemed the buy-in seemed such a long time to get to where I needed to get in that game that I just could not fathom running around with a stick being eaten by saber-toothed tigers. But I have seen in-game videos where you can capture animals in the game and use them as mounts. But someone had captured like a giant pterosaurus and had fully built a base on the back of the pterosaurus and put a minigun in. So like, they were fully just had built a flying fortress, and were just like, basically built a helicarrier, and they were just like flying around gunning down monsters, I guess, to get whatever they needed to get. But like, that seems fun. Like, I like to get to that point, but like the in between that and like the 30 hours I'd have to put in to like get to that point is always pretty daunting for me.
Yeah, Ark is a game where I had to check out because I kept getting eaten by like Tyrannosaurus Rexes, and I literally had like a spear with a like some straw like wrapping around the handle. Like, I didn't have anything. I've been playing The Wandering Village, which is an indie game, probably available on all consoles. The conceit is, imagine like the building mechanic from like Age of Empires, where you like build different types of buildings and unlock different things for your society, and you're building this on the huge shell of this giant walking four-legged like turtle-like beast.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
And as it walks around, it goes through different regions of this world with different weather patterns and different levels of like pollution. And so you have to establish like a bond with this animal. You can either choose to like exploit it and use its blood and use its bodily fluid for stuff which can harm it, or you can choose to like, which comes with some boosts. Like there are reasons for doing that, but then you can do other things that like build your trust with the creature. And if you can build your trust with the creature, you can like tell it to go certain ways so it doesn't like walk into like the desert where it's all hot and now all of a sudden you don't have water. That game's really fun. I'm getting ready to play Diablo 4. Are you a Diablo person?
No, but I was gonna. While you were talking, I was thinking about a game I've been replaying. A game that I really was a big fan of years ago, XCOM, the XCOM series. But I've been replaying XCOM too. Did you ever get into the XCOM games or
I love
XCOM style games?
Yeah, XCOM is. How would you describe it? As like a third-person, turn-based strategy action game in which the player is fighting off an alien invasion.
Yes, with like very light elements of like resource management, like you're like running a bureaucracy, like a government bureaucracy. So it's like you need to go to Nibia to negotiate to get enough iron to give to England, which is like can be a little boring and frustrating, but the actual like moment-to-moment gameplay where you're doing the strategy is very addicting because you build individual soldiers and you become bizarrely attached to them, and if they die, they die. And so like and sometimes if you're like me, like you'll fully restart campaigns because you had lost your favorite French soldier that has been with you since mission 2.
Do you have any recs of recent games or games you've played in recent years that you've quite enjoyed? I know our friend Andrew has been playing a lot of Marvel Snap, which is basically Hearthstone with a Marvel skin on it that is really, really addicting.
Yeah, I've heard that game is addicting. I mean, I've heard all of those sort of card-based games are addicting. So that's why I've never really dumped into them because I just know I have that in me. I'll hit like some greatest hits like Hades. If you're going to get a Switch, I highly recommend Hades. One of the best video games ever made. Fantastic story. Fantastic voice acting, fantastic art direction. It's all you can ask for. It's a fantastic game. It's one of the few games that I feel sad when I boot it up because I see the triple digits I've put into it hour-wise, but that's a great game. I think a little bit more modern, Resident Evil 4 Remake, again, capital V video game. It's a game that does not take itself seriously, but also does take itself very seriously at moments. It's a really, really fun ride. I highly recommend that. And, for fighting games, I highly recommend Dragon Ball Fighters, which came out maybe 4 years ago at this point. But if you're a fan of like Marvel vs. Capcom style arcade fast-paced action and a fan of the anime Dragon Ball Z, I highly recommend that. Fantastic art. They use a system that sort of replicates animation style, so it looks like you're playing an episode of the anime or the manga issue of the manga. It's really, really cool. Those are probably like my 3 or 4 go-to titles to play, and of course, Twilight, Tears of the Kingdom, just because it's going to be the only thing anyone's ever talking about for the next month and a half.
For the folks who are going to game, I'm always recommending Stardew Valley. It's available, indie game available on any platform. Just one of the deepest, most positive, most addicting games ever. It's ostensibly like a farm resource management simulator, but it goes much deeper than that and explores themes of like corporatism versus naturalism, community versus isolation, capitalism versus shared responsibilities and benefits, and it is just like delightful to look at. Crusader Kings 3 is so fucking hard and hard to get your arms around. I had to watch, no joke, like 6 hours of tutorials to like really kind of understand the Crusader Kings like mechanics. But once you kind of get it, and the tutorial is pretty good at giving it to you, it can be really fun. I usually play as a skullduggery focused ruler, which means like I'm spreading rumors about my rivals. I'm like sending spies to like enemy castles to find out like who's fucking who and like what are the secrets I can use to get leverage on people, and like how can I lure this person to my kingdom so that I could fucking imprison them and kill them, And what's really cool about Crusader Kings 3 is much like Crusader Kings 2, there is a Westeros mod. So it's just been released,
cool.
I think, a month ago. You can basically play as a ruler on the continent of Westeros. You can either be a Stark, you can be a Lannister, you can be a Baratheon, and then I think you can be a Greyjoy. And through that, you can try and unify Westeros under your control. And it's the same mechanics as the Crusader Kings 3 game, but they've skinned it for A Song of Ice and Fire with like biographical material from the games, from the books, excuse me. And it's super fun.
What's your go-to house that you go with?
I go with the Starks because it's honestly the easiest. It's the easiest difficulty, and because you just start out with like massive bonuses to like war fighting, so very easy to get gold by just like sending armies to raid like whoever. Like when you start the game, Robert's Rebellion is like ongoing. So the thing I like to do is send my armies to fight the Lannisters and King Aerys' forces. But instead of like fighting his armies, I'll like go to different areas and just like while Robert Baratheon's armies are like doing the heavy lifting, I'll just like raid villages and like
asymmetrical warfare.
Yeah. If you want to play like something that's like very like 16-bit throwbacky, that's like an always changing like dungeon crawler experience, kind of, it's like Hades, only like with that kind of 16-bit throwback style. Noida is really fun. It's basically you play as a kind of wizard that explores all these different kind of caverns where you find all kinds of different monsters in there. Here's one last suggestion is Celeste. Have you played Celeste?
Oh, yes. No, but I've heard nothing but fantastic things about that game.
Celeste is probably the best video game about mental health that I've ever played. It's a 2D platformer that is really, really hard, but the hardness of the mechanic underlines the theme of like processing trauma and trying again to like overcome certain things in your life. And it's all about this character Celeste who's climbing this mountain, this like huge mountain, and trying to find herself and come to peace with herself. And she faces all these different challenges along the way. And it is super, super addicting, really, really hard, but really, really fun. Again, it's available on basically whatever platform you have. And then if you really want to get toxic and you're not good at shooting things anymore and you want to play a multiplayer game that is the closest I've ever felt to like, this must be what it feels like to be in the NBA, Overwatch 2. People are going to hate on it, but it's still fun. When I play competitive, Zig, in the competitive mode, and for all the marbles, all the chips are on the table, people are sniping at each other in the chat, like, why are you picking that character? What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Stop standing in the doorway. It is the closest I think I'll ever come to feeling like I'm a professional athlete, like competing in something that matters.
That's one of those games where I'm so bad at it, but like when you do have a good day or a good match, you are like count the rings. Like that's very much the feeling when you're like, oh, you're picking Hanzo, that's trash. Like count the rings, baby. Let's
talk about the Writers Strike since you mentioned it. We do go and pick it at 5 a.m.
Yes.
Most recently, we were together with our friend Andrew and Pornsack and Z at 5 a.m. at Rally Studios, trying to shut down a production over there. What has your experience been like over the course of this 3-week-long strike?
I was in sort of a unique position because the last show I was on wrapped in February, so like I really didn't have much going on outside of, occasional podcast and writing comic books. So like I definitely had the free time and like was used to having pretty open days. Like I do nothing besides wake up, do a little bit of writing, work out, and then like fuck off for the rest of the day. So like this has been a perfect excuse for me to like dedicate some of that like energy I've had. But I've never picketed anything before. Like I've protested, but I've never been part of like a union action. So like it's been very, very sort of inspiring to see something this well organized be mobilized. I've been hitting predominantly Disney Studios because that's the company I've worked for the most, and also parking is easier in the Valley. Yeah. But it's been interesting seeing how each each picketing site has its own little like ecosystem. Like it's like different tables in like the high school lunchroom, you know, like, oh, this is the cool table, this is like the weird table, this is the table where like the burnout and freaks hang out. Like it's been very, very fun. Also, it's just been nice to like, for me anyway, I think maybe the same for you, like most of my writing experience has been through Zoom. So like seeing other people in person for the first time has been very interesting, particularly people that you only know from online or you only know from like little boxes in the Zooms. Like I was telling Jason earlier before we started recording that we had a Futurama meetup last week at Paramount. And I had been with these people for like more than a year, but it's still the first time that I'm meeting like half the cast in person. So like I'm finally meeting like Billy West and Dave Herman and Maurice LaMarche and all these people that have been in my computer screen for basically a year, and even more so in my brain for watching the show. But like it's been nice in that regard, and also it's been nice watching the greater community of Los Angeles come together. You know, it is an industry town. A lot of solidarity from businesses. I've had, you know, businesses reach out to me to like ask how to get in contact to like donate food or donate time and stuff. Has been really great, and a lot of businesses have been offering discounts for WGA members, which has been nice. It's the only time I've worn like a WGA shirt and have people give me nods and like solidarity fists while walking down the street, which has been very interesting. Like it's been a really fun experience, very unique experience. But what has your experience been like?
I've been learning so much, and I think the thing that has really stood out to me, as you know, as this union tries to grapple with the issues facing it, is like you said, like I'm a person who is like writing for TV is not all that I do, and it suddenly struck me how basically almost everyone I know that is a member of the WGA does other things. Like if their income was just writing for TV, they probably would not be able to live in LA, certainly, or like survive, because you know, the way the industry is you get on a show, maybe you work for 10 weeks or 12 weeks or whatever. Pay during that time is great. Like, you know, really, you know, great union wages, union bargained wages. So great. But then the show's over. There's a hold on you, because if it gets picked up or if it comes back at a certain time, they have like the right to have you basically book you first. So you have to clear out like part of your calendar. And so, and also it's hard to get other gigs. So you might not work again for 2, 3, 4 months, 8 months. And it has nothing to do with how talented you are, how brilliant of a writer you are. That's just the way the landscape of this is now. And you mentioned the Zoom issue. I think, you know, the fact that writers don't go to set anymore is really one of the huge issues that we're dealing with, because that is the path to forward advancement. You know, like you're seeing now a lot of this kind of like discourse about, well, you know, like a lot of the CEOs make a lot of money, but a lot of the highest earning writers make multi millions of dollars, and they're very, very successful. And some of them, Mike White, you know, Matt Weiner, they have very small like writers' rooms, or they just work on their own. So like, what are these issues we're dealing with? Well, first of all, those people like Matt Weiner, I think his like first gig was like what was Andy Richter's? What was that Andy Richter show from the early 2000s?
Andy Richter Controls the Universe?
Yes, Andy Richter Controls the Universe. And like that was his first foray as a working writer, where I'm sure he garnered the benefits and you know, the health benefits and the retirement benefits that you get when you're a member of the union. The way people get there to those to if they're fortunate enough to become like this massive force in the industry is by working their way up the ladder. And basically that ladder is being like pulled up ahead of so many people, like and it's really concerning. You know, I think the AI issue is one that minimum staff writer number is two issues that I kind of didn't understand, you know, like, so one of our proposals is to set a minimum number of writers for each room, for each kind of show. And why are we doing this? The reason is because increasingly shows in mini rooms are being produced by like one head writer and like a handful of other writers. They're trying to whittle it down. And with the entrance of AI into the field, you could see a world in which the studios would just want like AI generating ideas and then a couple, maybe one writer or two, making it palatable for human consumption. And in that case, you'd have, like 100 shows and 200 writers, and the WGA ceases to exist as a body at that point. There's no health insurance. There's none of that stuff. So it really is, when people say it's existential, it kind of is. It really is.
Yeah. Well, also, even all the stuff that you mentioned before about, these mini rooms and being together and your show coming out and all that stuff. Also, there's a reality where your show just doesn't come out. Like, you spend all this time working on something, but then you don't have the calling card to be like, yes, I worked on this. I have something to show you. It can just not be made, or it can be made and then it can be pulled off of the platform it was on to just be sold off for like, 0.5% off of the end of the year taxes. So like, I've been lucky to work for, I did work for a show that's been pulled off. My first show, Craig Creek, like you can't find it on HBO Max anymore. Like it's gone. Like it was a show that was also an animated show that was canceled, halfway through its 5th season with the spinoff that was canceled. I've been lucky in that most of the other shows I've worked for have been bigger shows. Like, it would be very hard for Marvel to be like, we're just going to not show She-Hulk anymore. We're done with that. It's kind of hard to be like, for Hulu to be like, yeah, we're going to cancel this reboot for Futurama because it has a staying power or whatever. So like, I've been very lucky in that regard, but I know for a fact that most other writers don't have that. Like it's very, like, I worked on Futurama for 56 weeks, like, and that is a very rare thing for people to do in this industry at this level. And be able to earn like an actual living. But even with that, like I was still doing this podcast occasionally. I was also still writing comic books because, that well is going to dry up, and you can go, like you said, 2, 4, 6, 8, sometimes a year and a half between jobs.
I have no idea how long this is going to go. I hope it ends to the benefit of all in a rapid manner, but it may not, considering how far apart the sides are. But it's been It's been really great to be, as you said, like shoulder to shoulder with so many talented people who are, I think one of the coolest parts of this is meeting generations of writers who, because they struck in actions years ago, we are now able to enjoy stuff like being able to go to the doctor, and go see a dentist, It feels good. It feels like right now I've got a show coming out. I can't promote it because we're on strike. But it also feels like good to be part of this thing that hopefully can solidify this as a career for all the people out there who dream of writing for a living and hopefully get into this field. Like, for this to exist in years to come, we have to be victorious now. And I hope we are.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, Zig.
Yeah, of course.
Do you have anything to plug?
Actually, as of this recording, Miles Morales Spider-Man number 6 has just come out. Check that out. It's a really fun book. I've been very lucky that the reviews have been great and the sales have been great. So I just found out the other week that, I was originally contracted for 12 issues and now it's up to 24. So you at least got me for 2 years of Miles, which is really fun. It's been a fun ride. Like I love that I get to play with this character, so check that out. It's literally one of my dreams come true is writing Miles Morales.
It's great to hang out with you, Zig. I'll see you on the picket line at 4 a.m. soon. Up next, Hive Mind with Sean Gunn to discuss Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Welcome to the Hive Mind, where we discuss a topic in detail with an expert guest. In this episode, who could be more of an expert than Sean Gunn, who co-stars as Kraglin in Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 3, and the franchise in general. Sean Gunn, welcome to X-Ray Vision. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Congrats on a rousing conclusion to the Guardians trilogy.
Rousing. I like that.
It was, a raccoon made me cry, which was
many times.
Unexpected.
Many times.
That's good. That's our job.
Any thoughts now looking back on this trilogy? Like fun moments, highlights?
Oh my gosh. How much time do you have?
As much as you got.
It's like it really has been an amazing. It will always be a touchstone for my entire career. These movies. I mean, you know, I went to London to shoot the first one around 10 years ago, and now 3 movies later, and you know, it's 10 years is 20% of my life. So it's like it's a big part of me. The people that I met and that I worked with along the way, working with my brother. But really the most important thing is just making movies that I'm proud of and that I think are really, you know, strong stories to tell.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, you know, that 10-year journey. In that time, we've also seen comic book movies go from being something that was still kind of seen as niche. And, you know, when Guardians came out, people were like, nobody knows who these characters are if you weren't like us and like digging in the back bins of a comic book shop, to becoming the biggest thing in the world. What's that journey been like, kind of being a part of that, especially as one of the most ragtag, unexpected, but beloved kind of teams?
Yeah, I certainly feel very fortunate to be a part, not only of the MCU, but definitely this franchise in general. But you're right. It's like, it was a good time to sort of get in the door, right when comic book movies are the biggest things in the world. Though I'm not somebody who thinks that, okay, well, the heyday is going to be over and then that's it. They're going to go away. You know, comic books themselves didn't go away. You know, we didn't.
Right.
100 years strong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like they're a great template for telling great stories. So we're going to keep having them. I don't know if they'll always be the biggest movies of the year, but so what? They're going to be. They're going to always be around, and we're going to keep telling great stories with them.
How do you view Kraglin? When you embody this character, who is Kraglin?
It's a good question. You know, the funny thing is that I didn't know exactly who Kraglin was really until I saw the first movie. You know, it was like because we experimented on set a lot. By we, I mean my brother James and I, on who this guy was. And I knew that he was kind of, you know, Yondu's sort of sidekick. He was listed as the first mate. But we weren't sure what was going to make him most effective, and we played with him being a little more menacing or a little bit, you know, dopier or more bored or more whatever. And he just kind of landed where he landed. And then I saw it, and then I sort of understood who he was. You get this glimpse at the end of the first movie where we know that Kraglin was there when Yondu picks up Peter Quill from Earth. Kraglin was already there on the ship, and he's not that much older than Peter, so they've grown together. Then in the second movie, what we kind of learn is that this is the prodigal son. It's the parable of the prodigal son story, right? Where Quill is the son who leaves, and Kraglin's the one who stays. And for whatever reason, Yondu seems so happy and welcoming and open to Peter, and Kraglin's a little bit like, what about me? I've been here the whole time. That's been his journey, to figure that out. And then into the third movie, still wanting to do right, still wanting to like be a good, to produce, to help the team, to be a good soldier, which is really a driving thing for Kraglin. But trying to put it in the place of, but who am I here? Where is I on the outside, or am I a part of it? And you know, we get a fun glimpse into how that all goes for him in the third movie.
Yeah, and then what about your kind of other performance? Because you are in quite a rare situation where you get to play someone in live action and craft this character of Kraglin, but you're also essentially a creature performer bringing Rocket to life in mocap when you're on the set. So what's it like to see Rocket go on this journey that obviously in the third movie, this is Rocket's movie.
Yeah.
This is the story of him.
It really is. It really is Rocket's movie. You know, I've been in the right place at the right time, here and there in my career. And I also, fortunately, I have certain weird skills. And one of those skills is I'm super limber. And in the first movie, when we needed somebody to you know, play Rocket with the other actors, my brother James knew he wanted someone he had trusted and worked with. And in the first rehearsal, I just kind of got down on all fours and started doing it. And so I've contributed in the process of creating Rocket. I mean, of course, Rocket has an entire team of people that make him. He's got, my brother, the writer, quarterbacking everything. And then, of course, I do my part on set. The visual effects team takes it from there. And then Bradley Cooper really is just amazing and kind of makes the whole character complete when he puts all the pieces together. From my point of view, I just try to do what I do for any character, which is I try to understand where they are in time and space when we see them and they're doing their scenes, and I try to do right by them. So it's a lot of, it takes a lot of focus and energy, but I'm really happy to have been able to do it.
Tell us about working with Sylvester Stallone. He makes his first appearance in the second movie, and we see him here in the third movie. He has, I quote the line all the time about the hordes of freedom, the colors of gourd, and how they will not flash over Yondu's grave,
not happening
because of the various crimes he has committed. What was it like working with a legend like that?
What can you say about a legend? Sly was absolutely great. How do I put it? He's what you'd expect. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I love having him there, but he's a little larger than life for me. I say hello and shakes my hand. He's like, "Hey, Sean, good to see you." But I don't do too much. I get a little bit awestruck by somebody like him, which is funny because I've worked with everybody now. I worked in, like I did all the Avengers movies. I was on set every day with all the Avengers, and then you add in Suicide Squad, and I think my resume for the biggest actors that I've worked with is pretty substantial now. If I start listing all the people that I've worked with. But Sly is in his own category. He's not like that. He's not like everyone else. He's not just a star. He's an icon, right?
Yeah.
But I can say that he was certainly very, very nice to me, and I enjoyed every second I got to spend with him on set.
Okay, another important performance question about a co-star. So obviously Cosmo.
Oh yeah.
My MVP, love her. How hard was it to tell Cosmo she was a bad dog?
Because I'm an animal lover, and I would never.
You would never say that.
You gotta understand, though. Kraglin's his feelings are really hurt here. He's been trying for so long. Like, we see that he can't get the arrow right. He's hit tracks at the end of the second movie. He doesn't even try to use it in the Christmas special. He says it's bacon, like
taking a break.
I don't have the hang of it. I'm not even like. And then at the beginning of this movie, it's like he's putting his all into it, and Cosmo kind of laughs at him and just whoop 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 whoop. And his feelings are hurt, so he maybe says something that's a little bit. I know you shouldn't call your dog a bad dog, but it was hard. It was particularly hard because Maria is amazing. So Maria Bacalova, who plays Cosmo, was right there for everything. And she's one of the most gifted and giving performers I've ever worked with. She's just like up for anything, and she's right there. And it's like that's Cosmo. There's no question about it. And her feelings were hurt. So that's what made me feel bad, was that Maria was like, "Why can't you tell me I'm a good dog?"
Your collaboration with your brother, James, goes back to Romeo and Juliet. Way back.
Oh, it goes back
What's
farther than that, my friend. But go on.
Yeah. What is that like, and how did it start for you? How did this life, this career in acting and entertainment start for y'all?
Well, the interesting thing, so James and I are there's 6 kids in our family. And so we have 4 siblings in between. He's the oldest and I'm the youngest. We have 4 in between the two of us. We're all very tight in age. So we're like, and we're very close. We grew up together. We love music and movies, and pop culture. And in a weird way, our paths, they were together when we're kids, and we're like working on stuff together and playing with our Star Wars figures in the basement. And then they diverged. We go off and do our separate things. And James went to writing school, and I went to acting school. I was always on the path to be an actor. And then for us, fortunately, they came back together again, and our jobs fit very nicely. I actually think if the job was right, we'd probably work with all of our siblings. It's because they're writers and creatives and things like that. But yeah, James was making Tromeo in '94 in New York, and I happened to be in acting school in Chicago, and it was summertime, and I had access to some decent actors. So like some of the people that are Valentine Mealy, who's in who plays Murray, and Tromeo was just my classmate, good friend, brought him out and like whatever. But it's always like that with me and James. It's like we're gonna try to we'll help each other as much as we can, and we work together when we can.
Yeah, and you mentioned kind of these, playing with Star Wars toys in the basement, loving pop culture, all of you having these shared interests. Do you remember reading comics together when you were kids? Were there comics that kind of you bonded over, or was that something that came later with Guardians?
Well, I have to be, the full disclosure here is that James was always the comic book guy, and he was really dug deep into comics. And I was more the type to gamble on sports, but that's a different...
Hey, both sides are needed.
That's a story for another day. And so, yeah, I like comics, but I was never James is, obviously everyone knows this now, but like James is a maniac he's like so into it. And it's really alongside music and movies and stuff. It's really such an intense passion for him. Whereas I was always very appreciative, but I don't know, from different, types of, like, I know who the characters are, and I try to know a little something about what's going on, but yeah, no, I can't keep up the way he does.
How looped in are you with James, of course, wrote and directed Guardians 3. How looped in are you, ahead of time on, what James is thinking about which way the story is going to go? Or do you just prefer to show up on the day and here's the script? And
no, James loops me in real early. But part of it is just because I think he likes having, I stay on of it when he's writing, when he's like in the creation part. I don't have any say there. I wouldn't want any say, and it's not part of my thing. He goes into his James cocoon and does his thing. But usually when he's done with the script, particularly for these Guardians movies, he'll sit me down and we'll have a conversation, and he'll go over it with me and kind of tell me everything that happens. So these movies, I mean, I knew when we were making the first movie, I knew what Rocket's entire backstory was. That we end up seeing in the third movie. I knew a lot of that. And then, just kind of along the way, after the first movie came out and it was successful, and we knew we were making a second one, he sat me down and told me everything that happened in the second movie. And I knew a lot of that stuff. I knew who Quill's father was in the first movie too. So it's like he sort of like keeps me, he lets me know what's going on. And part of it is I'm a fortress. I don't spill to anyone ever. Partially because I'm a good and loyal brother, but also because, as I said before, I'm a little less interested so I forget things. He'll tell me like these big, huge secrets, and people will say, "Do you know what that secret is?" I'm like, "I know he told me, but I forgot."
You're like, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Ego who?
Yeah, but he keeps me in on it. Although I don't know much about what. I know he's busy as hell right now. We're working on, we got one project we're working on together, but for the most part, he's knee deep in Superman and like doing all that stuff. I know very little about it. He told me how casting was going, and before you get all excited that I'm going to say anything,
The fortress. Come on, we would never ask.
Come on. Yeah.
Never ask.
I know that it's going pretty well.
That's
about
always
as
good.
much as I can
Good to
say.
hear.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
You
All right.
you kind of talked about talked a little bit about that project that you guys are working on. The Suicide Squad is one of my favorite superhero movies. I loved Weasel. So happy to see him survive.
Oh yeah.
When you played that character, as you said, James kind of lets you in on this stuff, but obviously the trajectory of DC films has changed. Did you imagine you would get to bring Weasel back as a kind of recurring character in something like Creature Commandos?
Did I fear that I would be forced to bring Weasel back?
Had you considered you would make a character so terrifying and you had to bring him back?
I knew we shot that closing credits sequence where Weasel's alive, so
Yeah,
I
he's
knew
alive.
Weasel was alive, and I know it's like, in some ways, I think Weasel is the cross I have to bear as an actor. I gotta do stuff like that. It's I don't know what it is about me, but for whatever reason, I'm good at characters that are just like total freaks. Which is what Weasel is. I think we can all agree, without offending anyone, that Weasel is a freak.
Oh no, I love Weasel for his freakiness.
Oh yeah,
that's
great.
That's why we love him.
But I'm happy. You know what's cool is that in Creature Commandos, we're going to get to learn a little more about Weasel. So I'm excited for people to see that.
It was revealed in deleted scenes that Kraglin was present at the big battle at the Avengers compound at the end of Endgame. In your mind, what was Kraglin up to? How did he do in there?
Well, the conceit was that Kraglin did not survive the blitz, so he did disappear for those 5 years, and then he came back, and he would have still been with the Ravagers at that time, so he was ready to go. I mean, like Kraglin's a great pilot, and he is tremendously loyal and just like, what is it you need from me? I'm ready to go. I think he seems he can seem a little clumsy sometimes, but I actually think he's pretty fearless.
Yeah, you think in that moment he was ready to take down Thanos. It was time.
I really do. Yeah, I think that's not, I don't think Kraglin is true. Kraglin's fear is disappointing people. It's not
Giant
dying.
Space aliens.
It's like a dying thing that's just gonna like, you may be in battle and die. That's how soldiers go out. But his fear is disappointing people, and so I think he was pretty ready to go.
Finally, and thank you for your time, Sean. In your mind, when Kraglin does pass many, 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 many years from now, the horns of freedom, the colors of Orgord, will they flash above his grave?
From your mouth to God's ear. I would like to think so. I mean, if not, what are we doing this for, right?
What was it all for?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sean, thanks so much for joining.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's it for us. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for putting up with our technological issues. Catch the next episode Wednesday, May 24th for more market moves and Yellow Jackets. Folks, it's incredible times in both shows, so hope you're watching. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube where you can watch full episodes of the show and check out the Discord to meet and hang out with tons of amazing fans and listeners. Plus Rosie and I, we are active on there. 5-star ratings, 5-star reviews. We need them. You got to give them to us. We got to have them. Here's one from Sinister JHK. Great, fun, engaging podcast. I really love the X-Ray Vision podcast. Thank you. I was a big fan of Jason's from The Ringer. Thank you very much. And also a fan of Rosie's from the old Orbital Comics podcast. Great shop, RIP. Jason and Rosie bring so much enthusiasm to their topics, and it's just what I'm looking for. Thank you so much, Sinister JHK. See you next time.